Ladies and gentlemen, talking about accessibility of medication is something that is important on this debate. That's why it's important for you to explain thoroughly how this nationalized will look like, how the existing JSK or Bayer or even Americ farm will look like in a status quo. I mean, how your relationship will be like with the current resources and existing pharmaceutical. It's important, right, to ensure that the distributions and quality of product will be standardized and will be accessible for all people. Because that's the key in this debate, for you to ensure that people really get the access and get the good quality of medicine at the end of the day, right? That's why CG will come to, we're going to be the only exclusive team that explain to you how this nationalizing will look like, and how our relationship with current pharmaceutical and how we're going to acquire them and how we're going to make them our commodity, for example, to ensure that the quality will still be better in the status quo. Talking how competitions become most of the major concern coming from the opposition side of the house, right? But first thing, right, how nationalized will what nationalized mean under our side? We're not going to let go the current resources like private clinic all over the country, like JSK Bayer, that they tell us it's good enough already. We're going to acquire them, we're going to work with them in a status quo. It's just we're going to be the only one that's going to determine the market, we're going to determine the research and development that we're going to do in the status quo, and we're going to be the only source of fund for them to do all those research funding and distributions of the medicine, for example, right? Distribution and quality will be properly still maintained in a status quo, because all that existing pharmaceutical already exists all around the countries in the rural areas, and we're going to still have that in a status quo. You don't have problems in distributions manner, right? But secondly, we're telling you the idea to fairly distribute the pharmaceutical and medicine in rural area can still be achievable even better under our side, because we're going to have not only we're going to have existing pharmaceutical that already good you claim in a status quo, but even better in the hand of the government. Even Alif told you in a status quo that government have no profit oriented behavior, but we tell you further than that, it has to be the government, because government is the only entity that care enough about society scrutiny, for example, like media scrutiny and journalist scrutiny. Why does this matter? Because for a long time, journalists and even reporter consistently, condemning the government for being too ignorant toward healthcare whatsoever. We think the existence of NGO that keep on condemning government for not care about healthcare is the ultimate weapon for us to rely and put this on the government hands, right, in a status quo. But secondly, it has to be specifically in the government hands, because in the status quo, government rely on private pharmaceutical already that seem to be good already in a status quo. That's why not much from the government trying to make sure that quality of medicine in a status quo are distributed well and properly in a status quo, right? So the moment you nationalize it, you're going to put a huge burden in the hand of the government, that government should make a huge reformation in making that these medicine and pharmacy are accessible in rural area, for example, or even accessible in terms of price, right? But most importantly, it has to be specifically the government, because right now, ladies and gentlemen, government are praying for rural areas voters. That's why you have a lot of times our governments are campaigning in Padang, for example, or Kalimantan, because they see that rural areas voters are very good prey of voters, that they campaign a lot there, right? That's why it's good for us to use that moment to, for example, to push the government to put this burden on the government and to put this healthcare policies more in their populism campaign in a status quo. Knowing that actually government is a body that is prey to social scrutiny, it's important and specifically important for government to bear this burden to ensure the quality of pharmaceuticals and the qualities of medicines that we're going to distribute, right? That's why we think it has to be in the hands of government, and nationalizing will be a good idea to ensure that quality you want and the distribution you want in every places of all the countries is visible and is actualized. But secondly, right, talking about the competitions, why do we think that competition and innovations is better under our side? When they're telling you that competitions is going to be vanished the moment government nationalizes this, no, it's not going to be vanished, ladies and gentlemen, because we're still having a passionate researcher coming from JSK, for example, passionate researcher coming from this Bayer that exists in the status quo, because simply they've been spending 7 years working in this field and exposed in this field, that obviously it won't be vanished for them to innovate something new, ladies and gentlemen. But sometimes these passionate people are unable to innovate more than that, because they are under the super tax people that wanting to do research more in the diabetes or more popular disease that currently demanded, or even more expensive disease for the rich people, right? The moment government own this, ladies and gentlemen, government will only rely to them, right? Rely to their brilliance, their intelligence, for example, to innovate all these medication. Because what that government currently do, right? Government rely on a lot of smart people, for example, to build the countries, and more ideas, and government welcome to how your ideas contributing to the society. We think that only through nationalizing, ladies and gentlemen, we give all these passionate researchers more room, freedom to improve on innovations on what products, for example, or what medicines is good for the society and status quo, right? Because they're not strictly below the dictatorism of the company or super PACs in the status quo, right? Instead of government that expecting you to, for example, innovate the medicines that is needed by the society in the status quo, be it the small thing that talk about cancer, or even the popular things that influenza and stuff like that, right? Right now, even researchers can go individually and independently to grow on this research more, because right now you're not under the company that most of the time wanting for specific and privileged disease such as cancer or whatsoever, right? That's why it's important that we have to nationalize this. But secondly, we think that it's harmful when the competition is in the hand of the private institution, because most of the time what they're doing is that they're going to play in a spectrum of price. The moment the price is low, you're going to provide a very low quality of product and medicine, and this is what we cannot really control as a government, right? The moment we nationalize it, we can at least put a standard quality of medicine that we're going to distribute, and even though it's cheap, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to play in a spectrum of price, because obviously the government are condemned, and government are pushed to give medicine that is effective, for example, and good for the society in a status quo. That's why we think that it's better to nationalize in a government, because government would not only serve in the best interest of the society, but government can able to not play in the spectrum of price and standardize all the medications that it's safe for all people to consume, for all those who need to.